Okay, we're live. Let's go. Can you hear it?
All right, yeah. I temporarily muted my microphone, but I can hear it.
Cool. All right, what's up, people? Welcome to the broadcast. I got some pro boards acting out of control today, and I'm going to tell them to bring it. Plain and simple. Bring your arguments, bring your counterpoints. And as of right now, I'm going to send the link to people who were commenting on my post in Google Plus to bring it. There you go. I got the link out. They can join whenever, and I'm going to put I'm gonna put a link on my actual YouTube chat. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna post the link in the live chat here. If you wanna see people, if you want to see people talking in a live chat, what I can do, AJF, is I can send you the link. When you see the little blue box up in the top left-hand corner.
Yeah.
It's a look. If you scroll to the left of your screen, and you'll see a options bar on the left side of the screen, and then at the very top you'll see a blue box. It says chat. You see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna post the link to the live YouTube feed. See, the live YouTube video feed and the Google Hangouts feed are. We're at the most recent real-time feed. So when you look at it in the YouTube video, it's going to be playing back like 10 to 20 seconds later what was already said. So if you go to the YouTube video and you hear my voice of things that I already said, all you got to do is mute the video. So you don't hear two voices going at the same time. So if you see the side chat there, you can see the video to my actual YouTube channel page to where this hangout is going on. And you'll hear things that I've already said echoing back to the YouTube video. So the reason why I showed you that was because you can see the side chat box there as well if people want to comment in it. And then you can see the stuff that people say. So I got that done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the link on Google Plus for people to join. So yeah, this is an open hangout. And I'm just going to tell them to just bring it. We'll wait for them to show up. And I have high confidence that it won't be long before a few of them show up here. Because I was already getting a bunch of feedback and I was already getting a bunch of responses from Pro-Aborts, and I didn't even have the post up that long. So I'm expecting a whole lot of them to show up real soon.
All right. I'm muted real quick.
Okay, but yeah, pro-aborts ain't got any good arguments. That's just the bottom line. They really don't have anything good going for them at all, and as far as solid argumentation for their position, they argue the most absurd things and they appeal to the most absurd um, circumstances. They appeal to the most absurd reasoning. They don't have anything to stand on. Pro-aborts are literally the easiest thing to refute. It's not difficult to argue against these people because they don't have most of them don't have a consistent position. The only pro-aborts that have a consistent position are the ones who agree to abortion throughout all 9 months for any reason. Those literally are the only ones who have a consistent position. No other pro-aborts have a consistent position in what they think should be a woman's right to choose, quote unquote. And we're going to find out if any of them are going to be brave enough to come into this room and say the same crap they've been saying. Now let's see. I'm gonna send a hangout to a few more people here. See if they're gonna join. Yeah, man. Let's read off some of the nonsense they were saying to my post. Let's see. Okay. Uh, all right. Suicide victims are fully developed human beings. Human zygotes and gametes are not. You should stop with this false equivalency fallacy.
Oh,
That is the worst. That is one of the worst
they're
objections.
not fully developed makes them more human.
Exactly. That's the false equivalency. Oh, you're more developed than they are. It's a false equivalency. But you know what? An infant is not as developed as an adult. Neither is an 8.5 month unborn baby. It's not as developed as a 5-year-old child or as a 30-year-old adult like myself. So they're begging the question. In other words, they're arguing off the assumption that it's okay to um, get an abortion or to justify their position before they even prove it. They assume before they even offer a justification that what they're saying is already valid because they assume as a starting point that the unborn isn't on the same level as everybody else. They assume that as the starting point. They don't do anything to prove it. They start out with already assuming it's true. And it's a circular argument. It's an arbitrary position. That would be basically like me saying that God exists because I say so. Therefore, God exists. You see, I've already started out with assuming that I've already proven my position. I start out with the premise and with assuming what I'm saying is true before I prove it. God exists because I say so, therefore God exists. The unborn is invaluable because they say so, therefore the unborn is invaluable. It's literally them. This is what these people do, and they don't have anything to stand on. I'm gonna see if any of them can come into this room and back up their nonsense. But yeah, I'm challenging them to bring it. Bring it on, pro-aborts. Don't try to claim you're not pro-abortion. You are. Let's see. Um, I'm gonna put out another one for someone else to join. Hey, I'm just putting it out all over the place. Let's see. I thought somebody joined. Nobody. Okay, somebody just said, what is it? When I said bring it pro-aborts, somebody said, what is it? Are you serious? If you tell somebody to bring it, does do you even need to explain what it is? Like, bring it on. Like, why do I need to tell you what it is? I think that's kind of self-explanatory. Bring it. What is it? Like, dude, that's like stupid for you to ask that.
What is that? That's on
Bring it. What is it? What do you think it is? Bring your arguments. Bring your logic if you got it. Bring your reasoning. Bring your foundations for why you believe what you believe. That's what it is. Well, apparently the dude didn't have a mic, so I guess that's not gonna be a go. But Gary Hall, what's up, man?
Hello.
What is your position? You pro-choice, pro-life?
I'm pro-choice but I've got pro-life leanings.
Okay, you got pro-life leanings. All right. Um, are you aware that your position is inconsistent?
No, it isn't. Because I say that I want less abortions in the world, but more. But I understand that nothing we're going to do is to prevent it, and the way to lessen it is through societal pressures, not through laws. It's through like you're changing society to be better, so women don't have to resort to that. That's a better way to be pro-life than, let's say, making abortion clinics illegal.
Okay,
Because
when do you think there should be a limit on an abortion in the pregnancy period?
um, the difference in opinion. It depends on the baby development when because people decide life. Scientifically, I think it's something like 8 weeks, 8 to 12 weeks. I think is the final cut-off period. I think I don't know. Sorry, I tell a lie. I think it's later than that. I think it's like 12 to 14. I think I don't know. At the moment, they're still arguing about when is it ethical to not. So because they're not really sure. I mean, I think it's 8 to 12 weeks. I think.
Oh, okay. But the fact that you believe there should be a cutoff period at all during pregnancy is you saying that there should be a cutoff, therefore women should not have a right to choose after the cutoff.
It's because the baby has developed a brain and has developed sentience. So therefore, scientifically speaking, it's like it's its own person. It's its own life. Scientifically speaking, I mean, there are people who hold to the truth that it's life when it's conceived, Which again, they have the right to believe that, but I don't think they have the right to put that in law.
Well, do you think you have the right to say that you have certain standards to where you think abortion shouldn't be appropriate because, after all, the entire 9 months of pregnancy, the unborn is still in her body and it's hers to control. I mean, if you want to be consistent in a pro-choice position, then she should have full reign and control the entire 9 months of pregnancy for whatever reason she pleases.
She does. She can smoke if she wants. She can drink if she wants. She can do hardcore drugs if she wants. She can do whatever she wants with her body.
Exactly.
But the thing is that there's no law stopping that. I mean, like, let's say for example, she decides to have the baby, but she decides to drink and have smoking, and smoking. Is there rules against that? No. I would argue that's more harmful than saying, look, being a mother is not for me at this time, or we have too many, and having some social responsibility and saying, look, I'm just gonna have it done while it doesn't have any feelings, doesn't have any pain receptors, none of that. And plus I'm going to get it done by a professional doctor. It's not going to be like some guy in the back alley somewhere. It's going to be done professionally.
Okay, so basically it's this. As long as a professional kills the unborn at say 8.5
No,
months,
it's not
okay.
killing.
Yes,
It's
it
not.
is.
It isn't.
Yes, it is.
It is not. If we,
So I need to show you a video of an abortionist that say he's killing.
You're going to show me a video of somebody who, abortion doctor, or is this just somebody who?
Yes, this is an actual licensed abortion doctor said, yes, I am killing. Do you want to see that video?
I'm sure you're not taking it out of context.
No, I'm not taking it out of context. He says, yes, I am killing. I know that. He's an abortion doctor.
I don't think he would use that. We use the word termination.
Dude, they're not in the business of leaving babies alive, dude. They kill the babies in the womb. That's the job. That's why they have vacuum aspiration machines and things like that. It literally rips the baby apart in the womb with like a vacuum machine. And there's techniques like that that are literally designed to kill in the womb. They're not in the business of purposely leaving babies alive, okay? The killing is the goal.
Right, but the thing is that first off, there is no vacuum. It's a surgical procedure done with immense care. There is no machinery of that kind. If there is, then it is used in a medical way.
Vacuum aspiration, dude. That's an actual abortion procedure. Do I need to show you some stuff on that abortion procedure?
Right, but when is it used? What purpose is it used? These things aren't babies. You got to get that out your head. They're fetuses. They're most fetuses. I didn't even that. They're probably zygotes. They're probably like as big as your little finger to maybe not even that big. Because do you know how big a baby is at like minimum like 6 weeks? It's not that big.
What does a baby look like?
But it depends on what stage of development it's in.
So you don't know what a baby looks like?
No, it depends on what stage of development it is. It's a mouthful question. Again,
So
it's not a baby
so
for a
you don't know what a
start.
baby looks like. You said it depends on the development, so you don't know what a baby looks like.
No, I do. It's just like you're asking a mouthful question because it's not a baby yet.
No, you don't, because you're talking about it depends on development, but you're not even giving any criteria
Well,
to back that up.
I should have said that. I should have said that. Again, it's not a baby when it's in the womb. It's only a baby after a certain stage is reached. Is it?
But you can't.
Okay.
And what do you base that on? And what do you base that on other than your personal?
Childhood development.
So a science texts state that only at a certain stage of development a baby exists. Because I can give you 12 sources right now that state that the unborn is a baby and don't say anything about late stage, about it being a baby.
No, it's only considered a baby proper. So to say, it's a different technical terms for it.
So they only consider it a baby. how do you know that they're just not considering it a fetus or just considering it other things? Of course, they can give whatever stage of development they want to give. They can attach any sort of term that they wish. So I can say by your logic, they're just considering it a fetus, or they're just considering it
No.
a
It's a stage of
zygote or
development.
whatever.
They're
Yes,
using a scientific statement of what the stage of development is, the size it is. You know, the month.
exactly. They're giving terms for stage of development, and they're putting descriptions on those stages of development. But here's the thing: those terms were decided subjectively by people. Okay, so they considered those, stages of developments, those specific terms for the purpose of outlining the developmental stages, not because of the fact that there's any objective thing that says, oh, they're literally a fetus or they're literally a zygote. Okay, they just ascribe those terms as mere descriptions. You can make those same sorts of arguments for even knows, not just the baby. So it's not merely the fact that just considering it a baby, because you can make that same kind of claim for any stage of development, or they just consider it an infant, they just consider it an adult. You can make that. These are subjective terms that they attach to different stages of development.
Yeah, but do you not think that there's a methodology to how we get to that? It's based upon childhood development. It's about size. It's about a lot of factors. Again, and it takes every month or how long it is, how many weeks of development and what size it is and stuff like that. And that's how we decide. Now, again, there are people who do late-term abortions. Again, and I'm not saying I'm for or against them. If you want to know my position, I'm agnostic on them. Because I think it's up to the mother and it's up to the doctor whether he wants to do the procedure, and if it's going to do harm to the mother, whether the child has certain rights like that. And again, it's a grey issue at that point.
But that's not the reason why you support abortion, because here's the thing: you already said right off the bat, it's about developmental stage. So like very early in pregnancy, even if it has nothing. Even if it has nothing to do with a life-saving issue, even early in pregnancy, you have no problem with abortion. So don't bring up some life-saving element as some sort of support for your position.
That they take into account when they're performing it, if it's going to be life-threatening.
Say what?
If removing the fetus, removing the zygote is going to be life-threatening, they tend not to do it because of those facts, or they'll let it know and will know the probability of death. Again,
that's not why you support it, sir. I'm not sure. That's not why you support it.
You don't know
why are you bringing that up?
You don't even know why I do support it. The reason I support it is because I think it's right that a woman has a right to choose what she wants to do with her body. And the thing is that, I mean, I don't know whether you know anything about what happened before Roe v. Wade or anything like that, but it was horrible. It was horrible. You know, there are women getting backyard abortions, from like people who would put all sort of manners of horrible concoctions together. And they wouldn't be doing this as trained professionals. They'd be doing it because these women were desperate and would try anything because they couldn't look after a child financially, morally, emotionally, and therefore they got desperate and just went, because there are now statistically less abortions than there was when abortion was legal.
That's actually absolutely not true, because there was this. No, it's not, and I can explain to you why it's patently false. There was this pro-choice doctor in the '60s in the United States before abortion was legalized in the United States. Her name was Dr. Mary Calderon. Dr. Mary Calderon said that abortions were done by very well-respected professionals in their communities. Okay. That's who were performing these abortions, not just a bunch of people in back alleys, so to speak. And then there are not any proof of hundreds or thousands of women dying in these back alley abortions before abortion is legal. These stories just simply do not exist. You might find maybe one or two here and there, but it weren't hundreds and thousands of women dying in back alley abortions before abortions were legalized. And in fact, even when abortion has been legalized, there's been stories of women still dying despite the fact that abortion is legal. So it literally has nothing to do with whether abortion is legal or not. It has everything to do with the ethics of the abortion doctor performing it. You there?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of what you said, sir. I'm just trying to just put. I'm just like, right. The thing is that it's not just the back alley abortions that we have to think about. We have to think about the coat hanger abortions as well that happen.
It's not just the back alley abortions. There were no bunch of back alley abortions, sir. That's false. Dr. Mary Calderon, a pro-choice obstetrician, made it very clear that such issues were false. You can't just keep arguing on that false premise, dude.
Okay, why is it a false premise?
As I made it very clear to you, according to Dr. Mary Calderon, abortions were done by medical professionals well respected in their communities prior to the legalization of abortion. There are these stories that people talk about, these hundreds and thousands of women dying in back alley abortions before abortion was made legal. That's just not true. These stories do not exist. I asked them for these stories of hundreds and thousands of women who died in back alley abortions, and they never were able to present any sort of evidence to back it up. So I take what an actual pro-choice obstetrician said over the alleged claims of what other people said that they haven't backed up. And we're talking about in the 60s, okay? This was in a time to where medicine was less advanced, and you still didn't have a bunch of women dying left and right in illegal back alley abortions. And medicine is even more advanced today. So if it wasn't happening that much then, so how much less would it be true if it happened now if abortion was made illegal? It's just patently false.
It's not patently false if it actually happened, and there are records of it happening.
Where are the records at? Show me the evidence, sir.
You want to show you evidence? Okay, let me look at. Let's look at.
And I'm not talking about a few isolated cases here, and I'm talking about proof that there was these hundreds to thousands of women who were dying. Hey, brother Tommy, how you doing, bro?
Oh, I'm doing fine. How are you doing? Good to see you.
Not too bad, man. I'm just challenging our friend Gary here to submit this evidence that hundreds to thousands of women were dying in back alley abortions prior to the legalization of abortion in this country. And every time I ask a pro-abort to submit that evidence, they're never able to do it. I gave them proof from a pro-choice obstetrician by the name of Dr. Mary Calderon. According to her testimony, she said that prior to Roe v. Wade, abortions were done by doctors well respected in their communities. There weren't these people or these women dying left and right to the hundreds and thousands to these illegal back alley abortions. It just wasn't happening. There's no evidence to back that up.
Right. I never liked that. I mean, I'm a pro lifer, but I've never liked that argument anyway, because it's like it doesn't make any sense to enable something just because people are doing it. It would be akin to like what if people were like let's just change this to rape. If you took a woman and you raped her in a back alley, and that just happened over and over and over, and people were getting hurt that way, would it make sense then to legalize it and make it legal in a clinic because
Exactly.
it was harming people or whatever, you know? it doesn't make any sense to make something easier and to enable something more just because a very few people were breaking the law on their own, going out on their own and harming themselves.
Exactly. Just because, even if it was women who were doing this sort of thing, that doesn't necessarily justify the point. In fact, it has nothing to do with anything with justifying their position. Just because a woman wants to take a coat hanger and kill her child and endanger her health by her life and her health and the life and health of her child by doing so doesn't magically mean abortion is justifiable. That just means she was just crazy and lost her mind and tried to stick a coat hanger in her uterus to kill her child. That just means she was doing something dumb. That don't mean anything towards justifying their position.
It just sidesteps the issue too of they're not even considering the baby itself. I mean, the issue is the life of that unborn child, and if that unborn child has the right to live and develop into a you know a regular life, just like all the rest of us had that opportunity, and so that's just kind of a side issue that. It seems more of an emotional argument than anything. Like, look at these poor women who they went to the back alley and used a coat hanger. Look how, we should be allowing these people to do this a cleaner way, I guess. And like you say, I think it's a bad argument anyway because they don't really have any real statistics they can point to show all these mobs of women who did this.
Exactly. And then they like to say on a regular, like they like to tell pro-lifers, don't like abortion, don't get one. Well, here's what I say to them. Don't like coat hanger abortions, don't get one.
There you go. Exactly right. That argument can be turned around on them.
Yep. So, did you find anything yet, Gary?
I've not got numbers yet, if that's what I mean. I'm trying to. The thing is that you do know that because they were legal, we don't really have numbers that much. You do know that, don't you?
Oh, so basically you just got a bunch of hearsay.
No,
that's what you're telling me.
We got women telling their stories of what happened. Now, if you want to call these women's lies, sir, I would think that was unfair in the extreme. Would you not think?
Well, as a side note, people tell the stories about witnessing the miracles of Jesus, but people don't seem to buy that on the atheist side. So, I mean, maybe you got a little something. I'm not saying that makes their stories invalid, but I mean, if we're going to kind of use that sort of criteria, wouldn't they kind of have to like evaluate the seriousness of their own claim?
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean here? You understand how a lot of the same people recently apply that same criteria to other claims, like say eyewitness testimony for Jesus. I'm not trying to change the subject here. I'm just kind of trying to point out how inconsistent people will be and how intellectually dishonest people will be. I'm not saying this is you, but just something I'm putting out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's not your main or your best argument for this, is it, Gary, for being pro-choice?
No, I'm pro-choice because it empowers women to make their own informed choice based upon the best information they have.
What about the choice of the baby, of the unborn baby? What about that person's choice?
It's not a baby yet.
Okay, so looking back at your own life, if you could go back, this is theoretical, obviously, but at what point would you not be you? You know, if you went back to your delivery and then your time in the womb of your mother's womb, at what point would you not be you?
I would say most scientists would say about 8 weeks, about 6 to 8 weeks is when babies start to become sentient.
So
it might be a bit later, actually. Sorry, I apologize. It's like 8 to 12. Sorry.
So basically, you would say I was not a person at 2 weeks, right? That's what you would say.
Pardon?
you would tell people, hey, I was not a person at 2 weeks. Is that what you would tell people?
I'd say that I wouldn't be considered so scientifically, no.
But to say that you are not I to the state that you were or were not at that point. So you're saying I. So how can you even say I? How can you even do that if you weren't referring to yourself? You cannot even say you were anything at that point.
I was existing as a zygote in my mother's womb. If
So
you even could call that me, I mean, I had no form of sentience yet.
it's appropriate, like, to say that you did not exist a billion years ago, but it's not appropriate to say that once you are actually existing as something, you know, like you existed as a zygote, right? But you were not a person, but yet you're ascribing the I properties to what you were not. Don't you see how that's contradictory?
No.
You make this claim as in sentience, and obviously we don't know at what point that sentience actually happens, or that it actually happens somewhere along the way. We don't know. For example, maybe we had a partial sentience from the very beginning. The point is, I don't know, and you don't know. But you're kind of making the claim that somewhere in the 6 to 8 weeks range that sentience suddenly appears. But the truth is, you don't really know.
It don't know the magical point to where you became a person, and then you say nonsense babies babies don't exist until a certain point of pregnancy. A lot of people will say, well, technically, even at 8.5 months, there's still a fetus, because the fetus is the term, for a certain stage of development until the unborn is born. There's not even a baby at 8.5 months, according to some people scientifically, until the baby is born, until the fetus is born. And then once the fetus leaves the womb, then there's a baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's according to what they're saying.
The problem is a lot of the people on the other side of the fence see everything as physical, and I think that's kind of where the disconnect is here, because like you and I would see life as something that is something that's miraculous, something that is special and treasured. It should be treasured, and something that's purposeful and beautiful and unique, and something that's beyond the physical. Whereas people like Gary on that side would just see something that's a month old as being tissue. They don't see the inherent value of life itself from conception.
I don't see my inherent value in it. I do.
Well, if you see value in it, then you shouldn't want to be killing it, and you shouldn't have the right to kill it, because it's not, something that was created in a glorious and beautiful and in a way that we don't really understand, quite honestly. We shouldn't have the right to eliminate something like that has inherent value.
And as a whole, it literally has the same stuff as a whole. Now, you see, as a whole, I have the same stuff and you have the same stuff that we had at the conception point.
That's a good point.
There's literally nothing different. As a whole, we had the exact same stuff from conception as we do now.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. We're wholes now and we were wholes then. We just, we had some potential to actualize at that point, but we were still whole. So we were a whole person as created at conception from the very beginning. That's a real good point. I never really thought of it that way.
Okay, but you're not whole at because for a start you don't have hands and feet for a start.
Well, that's true, but you're put together by yourself. Your brain is constructed by whatever it is that constructs you. So all of that potential is within you and ready to be actualized. But just because the physical hasn't been actually constructed yet doesn't make you any less real.
Exactly. Yeah, you're one of those people that are like, oh, I need to see an eye, I need to see an arm, therefore it's real. what does an eye or an arm have to do with
No,
anything being real?
I trust scientists by what they determine, because again, as I said, I'm not I'm pro-choice in my leaning in my attitudes, but I'm pro-life in my leanings. Because again, I don't want babies to be aborted either. But the best way to do that is not by illegalizing it, make it illegal. The best way to do that is to make the best information possible to make the most fit society we can, and then we would listen to it anyway. That's what I'm saying. Are you guys?
You have no science to back up what you're saying at all. You arguing on basically like your own personal beliefs, sort of like a religion.
No. It's based upon what the scientists have said about what constitutes.
What scientists? Because there are many scientists who have said life begins at conception. Human life, a person, exists at conception. So what scientists are you talking about?
The people who deal with child development, it would be biology, wouldn't it? Or biological anatomy or childhood development, as it's also known. It'd be that sort of thing. Again, you've not presented me with a scientist who doesn't believe that, by the way.
Actually, human development text state, and I can cite you a ton of references on this, that there's a human being from the point of conception. That is not something that is debatable, sir. And even pro-choice advocates out there have admitted that. Okay, so there's a ton of scientific references that I could put in the side chat for you that says there is the beginning of a human being at the conception point.
If it's not a human being, what is it, Gary?
Okay.
It is
Exactly.
a potential human being.
It is a human being. It just hasn't actualized its complete development yet, but it is still a human being. It's not anything else.
But to say it's a human being, a potential human being, when the beginning of a human being is. So if you can't tell me when the beginning of a human being is, then how can you know it's a potential human being?
And is a 3-year-old a potential human being since it's not an adult?
No, it's an actual human being because it's been born.
Okay.
Once you're born, you're
I'm
an
not
actual
following that
human.
at all. I don't understand that. What's the difference of being born?
No, when you're born, you are a human being because you're actualized.
So let me throw this out at you. If a baby, like during the delivery state, okay, a woman is in labor and you only see the head. The baby hasn't been born yet, but the baby's being delivered. So by your argument, there's no human until the baby leaves the womb entirely.
Did you hear that, Gary? Or you
Yeah,
think,
I'm just processing what kind of logic we're talking about. Yeah, I mean, again, the thing is that you've not provided me very evidence that the fetus is a human being from birth. It isn't.
what would you take? What would you take as
But
evidence?
you just told right, and I just told you that if you can only see the head, right, until the baby if you can only see part of the head there until the baby is fully delivered, there is no human being by your logic.
But I'm saying that it's a potential human being. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that it.
So during the delivery state, when you see the head during the delivery state, there's only a potential human being until the baby or the entity is completely outside the womb by your argument.
It would be a human being that's coming into potentiality. Because it could be stillbirth, it could die in utero, it could die while being delivered. It could would it be a human being when it dies?
No, until the entire body of that entity leaves the womb, there is no human being by your logic.
No, I'm saying that it is a potential human being. If it hasn't come out yet, it's not a
If
human
it's a
being.
potential human being, then it's not a human being. So until it leaves the womb entirely outside the body, it's not a human being until every part of the body leaves the womb in
That's
delivery.
correct. That's correct.
So if you see the head, it's not a human being.
No, not yet. Not until it's
If
all out.
if the head is outside the womb, but not the rest of the body, there's still no human being.
No,
What does
because
the
it,
location? What
Are
does the
you
location?
insane, dude?
What does the location have to do with whether a baby who's at 9 months is an actual human being or not?
because
Exactly.
if it's in the world, it has an identity, it has a name, it has a address, it has things that are tangible to it.
I can't
Before
even
that,
follow
it has
that.
no other. Pardon?
I can't even follow that logic. It is so it's so foreign to me. And I mean, this thing is fully
Okay.
developed. It's got a nervous system. It has all the feelings that you do. Has a brain and a brain stem and thoughts and feelings and emotions and all this stuff that you do. And for you to not to call that the human, I can't even identify with that logic.
Oh, I see the head. The woman is delivering. I see the head. There's no human being until the baby is completely outside the body, or the entity or whatever. There's no human being. I see the head. The doctor is delivering the child, or the non-human being, as you would say. But there's no human being till that body is completely outside the womb. Are you insane, dude?
It's nuts.
No,
That's
I'm not.
sad. Is what that is. It's sad.
Yes.
Sad that people think that way. I don't even know
Again,
how to
I'm
describe
not
it.
saying that I'm absolutely right on this. I'm saying that this is a scientific thought. That
Oh,
again,
so
this
you're
is
not
what,
sure. So you don't know what you're talking about. You're not
no,
sure.
no. Again, I'm not a scientist. I am not a biologist.
You
I
don't have
can't.
to be a scientist. You can just use your own common sense. I mean, they're going to screw you up anyway, so don't even listen to them. Just use your own common sense.
Yeah,
God
think
gave
for
you a brain.
yourself,
Yeah,
dude. God
God gave you a
forbid.
brain.
Thank you. God forbid you actually have to think for yourself and not let other people do you think it for you, sir.
Well, I'm not a scientist. I don't have a chance to go into a laboratory and detect this for myself.
You've got to be kidding me,
Well,
dude.
let me ask you, Gary. If you were to ask 100 women who are just about to deliver their babies if what they thought, if that was an actual baby or an actual human inside of them, what do you think they would say?
I can't see how something else would react to asking something. But again, the zygote can't talk. It doesn't have a brain, so therefore it can't speak. It doesn't have vocal cords yet. I don't think.
Okay, so if a 9-month-old baby who hasn't been delivered yet is not a human, what is it?
Ouch.
Hello, Jade.
Hi,
Jade.
Tommy. Gary,
Hi, Jade.
are you playing devil's advocate here again?
No, I'm being what I am, which is I'm pro-choice.
No, he just said that if you see the head in the womb
No,
during
but
the,
I know
wait,
that
let me finish. He said, wait,
I
let me
heard.
finish. He said if you see, so you heard what he said. If you see the head
Yeah.
and there is no
Um,
human being
Well,
until
no,
until the
I'm
baby
telling
is
my actual
completely
position, which
outside.
is that I'm pro-choice.
No, you
But
said that if you
I'm
see,
pro.
wait, you say if you see the head and it's not fully delivered. Oh, I see the head. Nope, there's no human being
If
till
it's
the body is
breaching,
completely breathing. No, that's not what you said the
not
first time.
breaching.
You said the body has to be completely outside the womb before there's a human being. That's what you said.
Now, the thing is, I know that Gary's pro-choice, but he's personally against abortion.
Yeah, I'm pro-life in my leanings.
But that doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, your argument doesn't really work, Gary.
I mean, you're
And the reason
functionally. Sorry, go ahead.
I understand. I think I understand what you're trying to do here. The problem is that um, at a certain point, there are. This is a difficult subject. You're talking about human life and when
No, it ain't for
something
me.
becomes fully human, a person, and so on.
I think people pretend like
But
it's
what
a
I was going to
difficult
say, Gary,
subject. Go ahead.
but here's the thing: is at a certain point, a fetus could live outside the womb. Okay. Few people argue, there are a few, but very few people would argue that that's not a person, that's not a human being. You have a fully formed brain, you have fully formed lungs, all organs are fully formed, and that baby could live outside the womb. It varies a little bit with an individual child because we all vary a little bit in our development. But certainly at 8 months, let's just say that for right now, at 8 month pregnancy, that child could live outside the womb if the mother gave birth right then and there. So there'd be very little argument that that wasn't indeed a person. Um, so as long as I said it was alive and fully functioning. So even if at 9 months, as a woman is giving birth, even if it's a breech birth and the butt's out and the head's still in, you still got a person, a fully formed human being, an individual that is capable of living and breathing outside the womb as much as any other baby is, because of course all babies are completely dependent. I mean, that's just the way we're born. We're kind of useless for a while, except that babies are really adorable and lovable, fortunately. That's why most people keep them. That was a joke, by the way. But yeah, so that your argument doesn't really work. I think I know what you're trying to do. There are certain people who try to argue that and there are just a few of them that try to argue that unless a fetus is in the world, that it is not a human being, a person with all the rights, and that's also a different subject. Um, Whether you have a person or not, legal reasons. Because if, let's say, if a mother is shot and the baby is, 9 months old but not born, that would be considered murder in most places. In some places in the world, it might not be because the baby is not yet in the world. It could be considered another crime, but not necessarily murder. If a mother is 4 months pregnant and she's shot and she loses the baby, that's not going to be considered murder. So you have a different standard there for legal reasons, and the argument I think you're trying to make is one of a legal argument. You don't have a full person for legal reasons until it's born, in some cases. But again, it's going to vary from place to place.
Yeah,
But I think you're playing devil's advocate here and not haven't really thought it all out, Gary.
yeah. I think even
No,
the
I have.
father argument is
Sorry,
bad.
I mean, I'll just defend myself on this because, I mean, I think I should be able to defend myself. But the thing is that I have, because it was based upon biologists who told me how development works, and that until it passes the vaginal wall, things can happen between the vaginal wall and it being actually fully birth. Like, for example, in certain cases, the vaginal wall can crush the baby's rib cage in certain cases. In certain cases, it can be killed when the water pressure on its brain. So then it wouldn't be a full human under that, because it would still be considered as a miscarriage.
For medical reasons, yes. Okay, I understand.
But this is what the biologists told me. So if they're wrong, I do apologise. But that's the
Okay,
reason.
no,
That's the reason I'm saying that he's not seen as a proper human being till it's passed out, because under scientific birth hospital records, it isn't seen as a proper birth until it passes the vaginal wall. That's what I'm basing it on. I'm not basing it on.
So you let other scientists and legal people do your thinking for you instead.
No, I trust what medical professionals say. Call it weird when we talk about a medical issue.
No,
we're not talking about medical issue. We're talking about.
Yeah, we talk about a woman's health.
We're talking about whether this entity is a human being or not. Don't need to necessarily go to a medical professional or a scientist to conclude that, because you just use your common sense, dude. You're telling me that because the vaginal wall could something can possibly happen during the delivery with the vaginal wall, during delivery, that means that if you see the head, there's no human being. That's ludicrous.
Yeah, I think I know what he's referring to. He's referring to if
It's
a
not
woman's in the
ludicrous, it's a
hospital
medical opinion.
and she yeah,
Again, the thing is, I'll tell you, sorry, Jake.
if
I'm
a,
just saying,
if a,
Malicious appeal to authority, sir.
no,
no, it's
well,
not.
no, it's
Yes, it
it's
is.
it's it's
No,
actually
it is
not.
not.
No,
Yes, it is. It's a fallacious appeal to authority
no.
We're
because
talking about a medical
because
field
no
and a medical subject. Therefore, I'm going to talk to
Can
the
I
medical people.
please
no
try
no
to
no
straighten
no
this
no
out?
no 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 no. It's common sense. If you see a baby during delivery, you see the head. It's just beyond asinine to say that's no human being right there, and you don't
Hey,
need to
Gary.
use some medical or scientific
Can,
experts to conclude that. That's just basic common sense. So to
no, I
say that if medical experts said otherwise, that's just a fallacious appeal to authority.
It's okay. First of all, it's not an appeal to an authority because an appeal to authority is when you're appealing to a false authority, not to a real authority. But what Gary is talking about is the medical terminology. If a child dies in the process of birth, it will be considered legally, I mean, medically, it will be considered a miscarriage. That
Yes, it's
doesn't
not.
mean that that isn't a fully formed human being. I think you're kind of getting confused on this, Gary, because as long as I said, generally speaking, there are different, and I know that's confusing. There is a legal standard for instance, murder. There is the medical standard that until the baby is entirely here and and is completely delivered, it's still considered a fetus. So if the baby dies in the process of birth, birth would then be considered a miscarriage. Whereas if the baby, but although I think they use the word stillbirth, but the correct medical different countries, different whatever. But I think that's what you're referring to when you're saying medically it's considered a fetus, and it is medically dealt with as a fetus because it is still completely physically dependent on the mother, and
You cut out there, Jade.
Hey, Gary, would you consider it to be immoral if someone were to, like in that situation that Antonio was describing, where you see the head right before delivery? Would you say it would be immoral for doctors or someone to kill that baby at that point?
I would, yes, but it actually no, it depends.
Well, why? Because I mean that doesn't follow because you're
No, be-
saying
be-
that it's
Because
not a human.
because it depends on the situation. If it's putting the mother's life at risk,
Okay, no,
and
that's different. That's totally different. No,
right.
I mean,
how's
let's
that,
keep
how's
that
that
out.
totally different? How's that
Well,
totally
I
different?
mean, obviously, if you've got a medical condition where the mother's life is endangered, that's not, you're comparing apples to oranges. We're talking about just your random, regular abortion, which does not imply that the mother's, life is endangered.
Well, actually, I
Okay,
think we're talking about a
then
regular.
no, I would consider that immoral then.
And what instance do they intentionally kill the baby around the delivery stage if a woman's life is in danger?
Yeah, they would try to save it.
They generally don't. There are some rare situations, for example, where the baby's head gets stuck. In
C-section.
some of these situations, you cannot do a C-section. No, it's too late. Once the baby has entered the vaginal canal, it's too late to do a C-section. You can't cut it open and then kind of pull it out and get it unstuck. It doesn't work. Um, the thing is, usually they do the very best they can, and the baby will probably die anyway. But there are situations where a woman can go into, I can't think of the correct term, but there's uh, like they go into high blood pressure, they go into shock. There's something that's going to happen, and they're in a position where the baby's going to die anyway. That would be the only situation where that would occur, and I think that's pretty rare. I think it's extremely rare because modern medicine has seen to it that these things shouldn't happen. But historically, they did happen more, especially with very young mothers. Which is one of the reasons that young girls should not have babies. Their pelvises aren't ready yet. There's not enough room for a baby, and the head gets stuck in there. There's no magic way to get it out. This is also why prenatal care is so very, very important to make sure that everything's, like prepped and ready. And if there is a really narrow vaginal canal, they can decide on a C-section before the baby's born. But I think this is like a very, very rare case, and it's a situation where the baby's going to die anyway, and it's not something anyone wants to do. But you find yourself in a position where the baby's going to die anyway, and if you don't act very quickly, you're going to lose the mother as well.
Right, and yeah, that cannot be extrapolated to, it's okay to get an abortion for any reason. That's a case to where one or both are going to die.
No.
Right, that's a very rare situation, especially, as I said, with modern medicine.
Yeah, because the thing is that, as I was saying before, I mean, I myself do not want to see a single baby be aborted, but I also live.
Want to keep
I don't. No, I don't.
Yes, you do. Because if
No,
you
I
did,
don't.
you would. Yes, you do. Because if you
No, I
did,
don't.
you would. Yes, you do, and I'll tell you
No, I
why.
don't.
I'll tell you why. Because if you did, you would want abortion illegal. Period.
No,
That's
I would
just
not.
that's just like saying, I don't want to see nobody raped, but let's keep rape legal. Let's suppose rape was legal.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
The two aren't comparable.
Let's suppose rape was legal. I don't want to see nobody raped, but let's keep rape legal.
You can't compare the two.
Why not? Is abortion
Explain
moral?
Because again, because they're both about the same thing, body autonomy. One is about
because you're killing a baby. You're killing a baby.
It's not a baby.
And you kill.
It's not a baby.
Say what?
It isn't a baby. We've discussed this about 5 times.
Oh, okay, then the person who's raped is not a person.
Wow.
No, the person who's raped has a fully formed brain, and that operates, that all the synapses work, and that person can think. The question that we have about when
What does that have to
is
do
a
with
person,
anything?
this is one of the question I have as to how are we defining a person? At what stage are you going to say that you have a person in here? And how do you justify this legally? Because if you're going to make laws, we can't just make law according to our belief system.
So if somebody, I thought you were
No, I was
done.
just going to say many Christians believe that the soul is there at the moment of fertilization. Other Christians are not so sure when the soul gets there. Historically, people were not sure when the soul was there, and the child was not considered a child until the moment of quickening, until the time when it was able to move. But if you're going to make laws for everybody, the law has to have a solid basis. This is where the problem comes in. And the solid basis of the law is, when are you eliminating what we would consider a human life? That's a difficult question from a legal point of view, not just from, this is the way I want it to be. Because if you're going to say, for example, that a child is there, a person is there from the moment of conception, which is what some people are trying to do with personhood laws, we have a problem, given that at least half of all fertilizations are eliminated through the body naturally, often without the woman even knowing she's pregnant. So
that's not a problem. That's not a problem. Just because things happen naturally does not mean that it's okay to do stuff intentionally. Things can happen passively. That doesn't equate to it's okay to do stuff intentionally. That doesn't make it a problem. That just makes it that people are trying to intentionally complicate the issue to justify their murderous killing beliefs.
No, but
I agree with you on that. I agree 100% with you on that. You can't justify that the body does something natural. You can't justify intentionally killing a fetus like that, or whatever you want to call it, just because the body naturally gets rid of it. That's not a good argument.
But are those persons then that are naturally gotten rid of by the body? Are those human beings?
Yes.
So we're fine with human beings naturally, ending up in the sewer system or
that's nothing
whatever.
about that.
That's not a good argument.
We can't do anything about
the natural body. That's natural. That's what the body does. It's different from someone intentionally taking the life.
So
Yeah.
we don't. Yeah.
Let's make common sense out of this now. Let's
No,
think. Let's really think about it.
the point I'm saying is you
So,
can't
because
make
natural
person
disasters
with lost don't
happen,
good
so
because
because
you
natural
can't.
disasters happen, we could kill anybody we please.
No, because we already know who those people are. We already have a definition of life that includes those people. All I'm trying to point out
Arbitrary.
is this is a difficult
Arbitrary.
question from a legal point of view when you're making laws. If we're going to consider that a person from the moment of birth, then that person has to be dealt with as a person from the moment of birth.
I agree.
I mean, from the moment of conception.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
all of those natural. What are we going to do with those persons? We're just going to let them go down the sewage system, or are we going to do something about them? We're going to bury them. Are we going to treat them like persons from the moment of conception?
Just
Or are we just going
because
to deny that?
no, that's appeal to consequence. Logical fallacy. Appeal to consequence.
No, it's
Yes,
a
it is.
logical.
No, it's not.
The
It's
logical
appeal to
result.
consequence because no. Here's what you're doing. You're saying just because there's some things that can naturally happen beyond our control, it's okay to intentionally brutalize babies in the womb early on. Ridiculous.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Yes,
I'm
you
saying
are.
I'm talking about the definition of a human life.
Yes, you are. Because you're
If
trying to
we're
say
going
just
to,
because things happen naturally, it's okay to dehumanize and
but we
the
can't
unborn early on.
dehumanize that which we don't know for certain is human. That's my point. If
Nonsense.
you're going to make a law,
From the early point on, it's scientifically irrefutable that there is a human being at the conception point. This isn't up for debate here.
no, it's not.
Right, which
That's-
scientist? Which
Do I need to
scientist said
show
that?
y'all do not need to show y'all tons of references to say human text to say at the beginning of conception you had the beginning of a human being, point blank.
Show me one that says it is the beginning of a human being.
All right.
It is the beginning. It is a potential human being at the moment of conception. It's also a potential non-human being, whether it develops or not.
Potential
You can't
non-human
argue
being.
that it's a. Well, it could die. It could split. Okay, so let's say we have an egg that is fertilized, right? So we have a human being there at that moment of conception. A human being.
Mm-hmm.
That egg splits into two, and we now have twins. So we had a human being. We now have two human beings. Correct?
So sometimes you can have twins, yes.
Right. Okay. So we went from a human being to two human beings
Right.
because the egg split. So we didn't have two human beings at the moment of conception. We had a human being. Later on in the process, we now have two human beings. Okay. So let's say those
Yeah, so you just have. Go ahead.
So that other person, though, wasn't there at conception. That other person there came later.
So what?
That means you don't have a person at the moment of conception. You have the potential of a person or more than one person.
No, that's not what that means at all. It means you had a person that became two. That's not what that means at all. Because
You don't have two people
twins.
at the moment of conception.
So what?
You have a
so
single
what?
person.
So what? Just
So
because
defining.
that doesn't mean that there is no additional person there because there wasn't an additional person at the conception point because the genetics of our being allows things like twins to exist in the womb. The information
Right.
is already in our being for that to happen. So just because there
But-
weren't two people at that point does not magically make it not a person at conception. That doesn't connect.
Okay, I don't think. Okay, let's take this just a step further for a minute. So you have a human being at the moment of conception.
Yes.
Later on down the line, you have two human beings because an egg is split.
Mm-hmm.
And so you now have two human beings, right? Okay, a little bit later down the line,
Yeah.
those two eggs combine again, and you now have one human being again.
So what?
Which, by the way, we think happens a lot more commonly than we realized.
It could. It may happen. It could happen. But
It actually happens more than we think. There's evidence now that
It doesn't matter. It doesn't exclude. It doesn't exclude personhood, whether they combine or break apart or not. It doesn't exclude personhood. Period. Just because
okay, what if
personhood can be added on to does not exclude personhood at the
or
conception
subtracted
point.
or combined?
You
You can
still,
have two fertilized eggs, two completely separate eggs with two completely separate sets of DNA that are fertilized, and later on they combine to form one human being.
and
So you had
if that
two
happens,
people at conception.
if that happens, we deal with one human being. If they divide and stay divided, we deal with two. It's just that simple.
But the problem is, again, the definition of person. If you're going to define a person, this is only for this definition. You can change your definition. That's not the problem I have. The problem is if you're going to say that you have a person there, a person, at the time of conception, that's an inadequate definition.
No, it isn't at all.
Yes,
No,
it is.
no, it isn't at all. Just because something unforeseen may happen, such as division, does not mean that we can't conclude that there isn't a person there. That's ridiculous.
I
Unforeseen things don't change personhood. That's
I'm
absolutely ludicrous.
explaining that I'm just simply saying that to say that there is a person there at the time of conception is an inadequate definition.
But if you're going to apply that to that physical makeup, then you can apply that logic to any sort of physical makeup.
What the point I'm making is you need to have a better definition.
That's not a point. All you're saying is this could happen, therefore there's not a person there. That makes no sense.
But there are times when a person is not there anymore. It's combined. You go from two people to one person. You can go from 1 to 2 to 1 or from 2 to 1.
But you just said, if when the body naturally like gets rid of a pregnancy early on, you don't have a person, okay? So here's the thing: if it divides into two and then naturally gets rid of that, they're not getting rid of two persons. Is that what you're saying?
No. Yeah, two people are disappearing into one. According to the definition of, if you have two eggs being conceived, then you have two people. According to this, the definition of life begins at conception, you have a person at the moment of conception. And not life begins at conception, but you have a person that begins at the moment of conception. And those two persons now combine into one person. You no longer have, if that person continues to be born, even though that person has two sets of DNA, and there are people with two sets of DNA, we have one person because there's one heart, one brain, everything else. We don't define them by their DNA, right? We don't define them by their DNA. We define them by the fact that they're complete and functional. And so all I'm saying
Right.
is to argue that there is a person at the time of conception is an inadequate definition. You have to add to that definition to take into consideration cases that happen, and probably from what recent research shows, happen more frequently than we realize.
That makes absolutely no sense, because if you're going to try to make that ridiculous argument at the conception point, then you can just go to the conception point at any point to say, and try to look at certain technicalities and say there's no person. Because if you're going to deny personhood at the conception point, then there's going to be a beginning point to where there is a person at some beginning point, which would be a different beginning point. And we can look for technicalities and argue semantics and try to argue against the beginning point later on and say there's no person. You can play the same kind of game. And then you'll never truly have the beginning of a person. We can play the same kind of games at any beginning point.
At a certain point in development, you're going to have a fetus in there that is quite distinguishable as a fetus. And at
No,
that
but you
point,
can look for any technicalities and argue
No.
against to say that there isn't a person. Yes, you can, because all you're
I'm
doing
not.
is looking
I'm
at
not
physical
saying that.
makeup.
You're really missing my point. You're wildly missing my point.
How? Because all you're doing is
I'm
looking
not.
at certain physicalities at the beginning and trying to
At,
argue technicalities at the beginning point. You can literally do the same thing
no,
at any beginning point of a person whenever you try to define it as.
is if you're. This has absolutely nothing to do
Yes,
with
it is. Because
abortion at this point. All I'm
argument
saying
that Gary
is
was making. There's like no
no,
human
no.
being or whatever until the whole entire body is delivered out. You're literally doing the exact same kind of nonsense
No,
you're
I'm
doing
not.
at the beginning
She's
point.
disagreeing with me, actually.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that. All I'm trying to point out is that the
Even though I think I'm
argument,
right on this, by the way.
the
Because
argument that you have a singular person, or every fertilized egg is a person, is an inadequate definition. You need to have a better
Nonsense.
definition.
Nonsense. Because let's say,
Oh, for goodness sake.
let's say for the sake of argument, I assume you're correct. Whenever the beginning point there is after conception, whatever the beginning point of a person is there a person 1 second before or 1 second after?
I have no idea. I
Exactly.
don't think there's any way we can decide that.
Exactly. So you literally have no way to conclude. You literally have no way to conclude that. Yet you think that you have some sort of certainty that you can detect a person, but you
No,
can't.
I'm not. I'm not
So,
saying anything like that.
so if you're uncertain, then how do you know when a person really exists? Then, period.
I don't think we do know that, period. But we have to make definitions for legal reasons. Right?
And you just proved my point. So since we don't really know, then we can literally argue technicalities at any beginning point to say
No.
there isn't a person here or there isn't a
I-
person here. Because if we
I-
don't really know, to make certain conclusions, we may be arguing off ignorance. Because we may be saying certain things that we really don't know or can't prove. So how do we really know when a person begins?
We don't know for a fact when a person begins. But I'm not talking about there not being a person per
And
se.
then to put a marker and say this is a person here, you really don't know.
okay, but the
Right,
thing is,
but
it's
your
a,
definition has to include the other common possibilities.
okay, but the thing is, Antonio,
That's
is
what I'm
that
saying.
you don't
Well,
seem to understand that it's a medical issue.
My
That we're
point
talking about.
is,
I keep on pointing this out to you, right? The thing is,
my point is, you can argue against the beginning marker of any point by the way you are arguing this nonsensical point. You can argue technicalities by any beginning marker you want to put. Whether you say, okay, at let's say 10 weeks there's a person, or whether you say at 20 weeks there's a person. You can literally argue technicalities at any beginning marker and say that there's a person, or not, or say, well, we don't know. We're just going to say that this is a person, but we don't really know. You can literally do the same kind of thing at any marking beginning point.
all I'm saying is you need a better definition.
Okay, then, and if the definition we give is insufficient, then any beginning point you give to say, well, it's a person at 20 weeks, nope, you can say the same thing and say, well, we need a better definition then too.
right, but we have a definition. But the thing is that we're going by the medical definition that is given. And the thing is that you don't seem to understand that, like, the medical definition is that until the baby is born, it isn't seen as such, because even if it's 9 weeks in, as I was pointing out before, and Jane seems to disagree with this, I don't know why, because this has been told to me by people who are nurses and biologists.
Because you don't want to think for yourself, because it's absolutely ridiculous. Every last single one of us knows that if a baby is being delivered and you see the head, just because the rest of the body hasn't come out, don't mean there is not a person or a human being. This is just common sense. I don't even know why you're arguing this, sir. And you want to look to these medical experts, or the quote-unquote medical experts, whoever you're talking about, and not use your basic common sense.
Yeah, it's like they know what they're talking about or something.
Well, wait a minute. Looking to experts in a field, uh, you think that your common sense would trump that?
I think you're absolutely ludicrous if you're going to say that the entire baby or the entire body has to be delivered outside the womb to be a human being. I think you're absolutely ludicrous. Or
Well,
not a person until every last crevice of the body is outside the womb before there is a person or a human being. I think you're being absolutely ludicrous to make that
my issue
argument.
my issue was with your concern over the evidence that was like over the citation or over the source. It sounds to me like you could say, well, why not just use common sense? Common sense tells us that the Earth is flat. Don't listen to scientists. Don't listen to pilots and stuff who tell us no, the Earth is round. You just have to think about all these sciencey stuff. I mean, you want to go with the experts a lot of the times. So
So
I
if the
don't know if
experts
you could
told you,
just dismiss
so if
his.
the experts, let me tell you, let me put something towards you. So if the expert told you there is no human being, when a baby is delivered and you see the head, right? If the
Mhm.
expert told you that there's no human being, it's okay to take a pair of scissors and stab that baby in the head or that entity in the head, you would listen to them because they told you that.
Who's an expert on entities?
But no, you're not addressing my
Let,
question. You're
let's
not
not play
addressing my question.
semantics. You know what the brother is trying to say, my man. Don't play semantics.
Exactly. Don't play stupid like you don't know what I'm saying. Address my question. If there's a baby being delivered, right?
Hmm.
Or if you want to say there's a non-person or whatever dumb semantics you want to come up with, if this entity is being delivered during at the delivery stage and you see the head, if medical experts tell you, well, there's not a person there, there's not a human being there, it's okay to stab this entity in the head with scissors during delivery. You would believe them if they told you.
Well, I guess not in that exact scenario, but who were the experts that Gary brought up
No,
that you
okay,
were
but
just?
why would you not believe them? If they're
Well,
you talking about experts, why would you not believe them then?
well, because in that scenario, it sounds like it's like you're correct in that manner. But who are the experts that Gary
Exactly.
that
So
you
you
were
literally only
dismissing?
make it. So you're making my point. There are issues. There are times to when there is a sound basis to rely on experts. But then there are certain points like that to where you could just use your intuitive, basic common sense.
Well,
It's just because experts say that okay, you see the head, it's okay to stab this
no,
entity in the head with scissors during delivery.
is that what the
The expert
experts
said
that
that. Bam.
is that what the experts that Gary was talking about referred to? Is that what
But
they said?
I don't think so, but what I'm saying is, if they were to say that, if the experts were to argue that point by your own logic, you should listen to
No,
them.
no, no. You're saying if the expert if they said
If they
something
were
that
to argue, if the
if
experts were to argue
no,
that, you
no,
have to
no,
listen to them
no,
by your
no.
own logic. Yes, it is.
No, the point I was making was different. The issue pertains to what are the arguments that Gary was presenting, and how was their expertise
Okay,
related
so
to those arguments?
why do you apply experts to those particular arguments, but not to stabbing the entity in the head during delivery with scissors?
I am. I'm asking who are the experts
You're not
he's talking
consistently
about.
applying. You're not consistently applying your criteria of relying on the experts. No, you're not, because
No,
you
no, no, no. It's slightly different. It's relying on the
exactly.
experts
Why is it
versus our
different?
common sense.
Why is it different? If the experts told you, shouldn't you believe them? Shouldn't you rely upon them for
I
that
feel like you're
thing?
trying to get away from the question I've been asking
No,
several
no, I'm
times.
not. No,
What's
I'm
what's
not.
with
No, I'm not. The
well
question is about what the
well well
experts say.
yeah, I'm
If you
asking
should you rely
what
on the
do they
experts?
say? Well, what
I
do
can
they
tell you
say?
what they said if you want.
What I'm saying is
There we
if
go. Gary,
what,
can you tell us what
what
the experts say,
no,
please?
But
wait, stop. I'm telling you, if they said that and if they made that conclusion, would you trust them? Would you rely on them if they said that?
I mean, I don't know what they say. I've been trying to ask
No, you're
what
not
they
dealing with
do
the
say.
question. You're not
Yeah,
dealing with the question. I'm
I
saying if they said that, would you trust them or rely on them if they said
if
that?
they said something that seems obviously wrong, would I agree with them? No.
Exactly. So there are certain times to where you have an intuitive appeal to your common sense, to where you
Uh-huh.
can say, okay, just because an expert claims it, that doesn't necessarily make what they say follow. There are times to where it's to where you can rely on the experts, and there's times to where it's obvious and intuitive to rely on your common sense. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, Gary, what were the experts you were talking about?
They were people who were in neonatal classes at university, people like that. Because I actually asked them, like, about stuff like this, because I'm interested. So I asked them, like, what happens during birth, and they said that, like, that it can still be counted as a miscarriage until the full body has come through the vaginal wall. It says that they don't really consider it a full-grown baby until then, because when it passes through the vaginal wall, it is, it that's when it's medically accepted to be a human being, because that's when you give it a birth certificate. That's when you give it a certain what we would consider personhood. Because before that, it doesn't really have an identity, and that's what they based it upon the fact that even even in those latter stages, it's still considered miscarriage if something bad happens. Hopefully not.
This was a point I was trying to ask later. I wasn't trying to play semantic games. It seems like there is an important idea to think about, at least about like what is personhood. When you said entity, I was thinking, well, is he talking about
No,
personhood?
no,
Is
no.
he...
No, I just used the term entity
Yeah,
since we're
I'm not
gonna
trying to
play these.
criticize. I'm not trying
Yeah,
to
since we're gonna
criticize
play.
that.
No,
Yeah,
if you
since we're
talk
gonna
about
play these. Since we're gonna
it
play
becomes
these.
what we consider a human being about what, like
I was just merely
like
saying.
7 to 8 months in. I think that's when all the things are developed. That's going to develop, and the baby's going to be making its way to the departure lounge, should we say?
I was just merely saying that since we were gonna.
When it starts moving to final exit. And that's the sort of thing is that, like, the thing is, the reason I'm using the medical definition is because that's the one we should go by, because we're talking about a medical issue.
I was just saying, since we're gonna play these games on, there's no human or person or whatever till the baby completely leaves the womb, then we can just refer to this thing that's being delivered as just an entity, not a person. If we're gonna play these games and say there's no person or human or whatever you want to say, then we're just talking about an entity. That's the reason why I use the term entity instead.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't criticizing this. I was just wondering he was talking about experts. It sounds like in the side chat, Steve was talking about demarcation between, like, I guess, what we would call personhood and what we wouldn't. It seems to me from the scenario you've been pressing that is a that is a human being. That is like it seems to me like obviously past certain developmental stages there are issues with carrying out an abortion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and about saying that you should carry out abortion. Like, what I was saying is that, like, he was asking me when he was breaching, is it considered a person? I said medically no, because it's still counted as a miscarriage if a baby dies in that particular state. And that's the only point I was trying to make to him. It wasn't that I personally believe that abortion should take place then. I don't. Because, again, the thing is that when it's fully developed, definitely not. I mean, even before that, I'd say definitely not.
What about legally?
Legal?
I don't care what the legal arguments are. What I'm caring about is, do we use particular arguments that we use to justify killing the unborn? Do we use these same types of arguments for born human beings? No, we do not. And I would go to say this: anybody who justifies the abortion position, it's easy to argue the abortion position when you're not the one being killed. You're not the one being brutally slaughtered in the womb. It's easy for you to justify the position. If you want to argue this murderous position of yours, then you should be willing to take your life or have your life brutalized first before you argue taking the innocent life in the womb.
Did you already go over which types of abortion procedures you are comfortable with?
I'm not comfortable with any of them, not a single one, unless, of course, um, like in the unfortunate circumstance of an ectopic pregnancy, where you have a baby outside the uterus and then the fallopian tubes. The problem with that case is that if the pregnancy continues, then it's going to kill the mother, and the baby's going to die anyway as a result. So, um, in that unfortunate circumstance, it's not even categorized medically as an abortion anyway. And I've checked several different sources on, the resolution of an ectopic pregnancy.
Well, it sounds like you are concerned about which terminology and which like definitions.
Well,
I mean,
it's not in that particular circumstance. You cannot call it, abortion in the sense that they just, they're just intending to just kill the child, without, any other considerations. Like they're just killing the child and that's it. But in that particular instance, they're trying to save the mother's life. The first, they're not trying to just kill the child full stop, because the mother may very well want the child, but may not be able to live if the pregnancy continues. And in that horrific circumstance, it's appropriate that one life be saved, rather two be lost. And in that horrific circumstance, you may have to, the baby's going to die anyway. So in that circumstance, only and only in such a circumstance would an abortion be carried out. But even that's not even the same as saying, okay, a woman just chooses an abortion just for her own convenience, and that's the same thing. It's not the same thing. You cannot extrapolate a rare, horrific case like that to saying, oh, yep, abortion should be okay for any reason a woman chooses.
uh, choosing for convenience, you can't
Yes.
ultimately have that lead to choosing for any old reason, right? That's the point.
Right.
I see. Okay.
So
Is
even if I were to grant that there was an intentional killing case of an abortion, that's not going to extrapolate automatically to just allowing abortions for any and every reason a woman chooses, even for like sole convenience purposes.
So you pretty much against women using abortion as like a form of birth control or something like that. That's where you're getting at.
I'm I'm I don't care if whether they use it for birth control or remote control. I don't care what they use it for. Um, I don't care what kind of control, whatever kind of purpose they use it for. If it's not for the sole purpose of her, coming through it alive, if it's for any other type of purpose outside of that, I think it's wrong. Period.
I mean, it sounded to me like it's if both the mother and the child are at risk, then the abortion can occur. What if it's just the mother, but the child would be fine?
Say what?
What if it's the case that it's the mother who would die as a result of the birth, but the child would be fine? Because many women die in childbirth, but they give birth to children who go on to live. Like in
The
that
mother, but the child
scenario,
will be fine. Okay,
uh,
if the mother but the child will be fine, then you extract the child out the womb and do
well,
whatever
no.
you can to save.
What if the mom wanted to have the abortion because she didn't want to die?
Well, because the child would live regardless of the situation, but she would die.
Yeah.
Then I think she, and then if she wanted to kill her child to save her own life, I, if she wanted to kill her child to save her own life, I don't know that there would be a situation like that. I've never heard of a situation to where um, the mother would have to die for the baby to live. What kind of situation is that?
Giving the childbirth procedure could lead to a lot of what are they complications where the woman dies. I mean, women die in childbirth all the time.
If she chooses her own life, she said, "Well, you know what? Um, if I'm going to as a mother, if I'm going to die, if I continue living, so I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to take my kid's life because it's either my kid's life or mine." In that particular situation, if she decides to take her kid's life so she can live, I think she's an irresponsible person.
What do you think of? I mean, what if it's the
Because
case that
that's just like saying
her family?
that's just like saying.
What if it's the
Well,
case that her
let me
family?
put it this
Okay,
way.
go ahead.
Let me put it this way. That's just like saying that a gunman, has somebody. There has a parent's child in them at gunpoint, and the parent makes the decision. It's going to either be you or your kid. And if the parent makes the decision to take the kid out so they can live,
Is he cutting out for other people?
yeah.
Yeah, he's cutting out for me too.
Okay. Let me say it again. You have a gunman, right? And they say it's going to be you or your kid. You decide which one of you lives or dies. But the decision is up to the parent, right? But it's going to be either you or your kid. If I would say that if the parent decides to take the kid out so they can live, that they're a sick parent. I think it's the same kind of thing. It's like it's going to be you or your kid. I think to
Okay.
put her life before her kid's life
Okay.
is
Can I?
absolutely insane.
Okay. Well,
What if? Can I?
Yes. Go
I
ahead,
was just
Jake.
going to ask what if this woman has children at home that need a mother?
So what?
What if the woman in question has children at home? Those children need their mother. So her
Well,
choice is and this happens in like cases of high blood pressure, and I can't think of the correct name of the term, but the choice is to and sometimes the choice isn't necessarily abortion, but the choice is to induce a delivery or a quick C-section, in which case the child is very unlikely to live. But the choice is if you risk the baby's life or you risk the mother's life. The thing is, the mother has children at home that need care. They need their mother. So are you going to take the mother away from those children to save the current child?
well,
And that's where I think that decision needs to be made by the mother and the father or whatever other parents are involved in the situation.
it's the same kind of thing with the gunman, right? It's the same kind of thing. The parent may have other children that are not presently
No.
in that particular situation, and they'd be like, well, if I decide to take my kid out, at least I can still be around to raise my children. It's the same kind of situation. But the parent says, you know what? Nope, I'm gonna take the kid out so I can live and raise my other kids that are still alive, that are not in this immediate situation.
I wonder how you would answer the trolley cart.
So what?
There's a argument, or there's a thought experiment, and it has to do with this kind of utilitarian dilemma that's being presented to you. My issue is the point I was trying to get to was how much is it important that the mother has control over the situation, that the mother's the one who chooses what to do in that situation.
Just like I don't see any situation to where a parent should intentionally like take the life of their kid, for their own personal convenience if the child is born. I don't see that to apply in pregnancy either. My issue is
He's
I don't
cutting out
think.
for me again.
Oh, my bad. I'll say it again. My issue is that I don't care whether the child is born or not. I don't think whether the child is born or not, anybody should have the right to make the decision to intentionally take the life of their kids. Period. But people play these ridiculous games and think it's magically different because the child ain't born yet.
Wait, what's the imaginary game? Again, you were
They
cutting.
play the. Okay,
It might just be
I'll say
me.
it again.
You know what? I'm sorry, man. Don't worry about it.
I think the point I'm trying to make is I don't care whether the kid is born or not. I don't think that parents should decide that. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. Since I'm cutting out for people, I'm gonna
No,
comment
no,
and
you were
I'm gonna
fine
reset
then.
real quick. Am I good now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Well, I don't care whether the kid is born or not. I don't think parents should intentionally take the lives of their children for their own personal convenience, whether the kid is born or not. And I think people make these magical, arbitrary arguments to think it's magically different when the kid ain't born yet, or the kid ain't developed enough. The parent may not be able to financially provide for the kid. The kid may have a hard life. All this other nonsense that they use, and none of these arguments they would give to justify killing children that are already born. None. But they magically think it's different because the kid is in the womb, because they've been brainwashed by society to think it's a magical difference and to think that pregnancy all of a sudden, makes it a different situation. No, it doesn't. So let's not pretend these arguments about complications and life-threatening things are the reason why people are basing their abortion, their killing positions. They point to these conditions because they know they can't not justify them logically for any other reason. So they point to these conditions and try to exploit them to justify their murderous beliefs.
Is that what Is that what you think I'm doing? I actually explained why I pointed out that that scenario, which again isn't. I mean, women dying in childbirth is not some crazy thing.
Because here's the thing: if you're going to justify your
Women,
position, then don't try to exploit like things like life-threatening cases and things like that. If you truly believe a woman should just be able to kill her baby or her child or non-person or whatever you want to say just because she feels like it, then say so. Try to justify it
okay,
on those bases.
okay. Well, if you're gonna already decide what my point was because you didn't pay attention to what I said earlier, then I don't know what to
I
do
addressed what you said. I addressed what you said earlier.
about.
And I addressed what you said earlier.
So
Now
you
what I'm telling
decided
you.
to put a new like agenda on me that I never proclaimed. I mean,
Okay, my point is this: if you truly believe that a woman should just have the right to kill the unborn, if you truly believe that, then just stick to that. Then just stick to that. Okay. What most pro-aborts that I come across like to do is they like to laser in on these tragic cases and then try to build the rest of their case off of that instead of just looking at it as this. Well, you know what? I think a woman should have the right to choose. I think a woman should have the right to kill, and it's not these life-threatening situations the reason why I believe that. I just think that a woman should just have the right to kill. Period. And I'm not going
if
to exploit these sorts of cases to justify my argument because I can make a sound argument that a woman should just have the right to kill her unborn because she chooses.
okay, so
If you
There's
truly
there's
believe
like
that,
there's
then
a classic experiment in physics, if you or like statement in physics, which is you drop a feather and a bowling ball in a vacuum. What is it? They'll fall at the same rate. Um, is it an argument against the conclusions you can draw from that experiment? Is it an argument against those conclusions to say, yeah, but when are you ever going to drop a bowling ball and a feather in a vacuum? It's a very rare occurrence. You're just trying to exploit uh, the situation by pointing to a very rare example. I was trying to make a point, and I used the scenario, which isn't as rare as you and me going out and dropping a bowling ball and a feather in a vacuum. It was to make a point about choice, and you answered the question, but don't try and put all these other like intentions
but
on
what do you
me.
really what do you really believe? Do you really believe that a woman should just have the right to choose to kill her unborn for any or no reason she chooses? What do you really believe? Let's get to the real crux of the matter. What do you truly believe?
For life's
I
in
don't want to hear
danger, I think that
I don't want to hear none of this beating around the bush kind of nonsense. I want to get to the crux of the matter. Do you truly believe a woman should be able to choose to kill for any or no reason she pleases?
no.
Do you truly believe that? Yes or no?
I answered you.
What did you say? What was your answer?
I said no.
Oh, okay, so you don't truly believe in choice then?
Uh, no. I would. There's a difference, but no, I don't believe for any willy-nilly reason women should be able to just like abort their child. But I think the issue is that that's not really the what the argument
Oh,
is
that's the most
about.
relevant issue because here's the thing: if you don't believe that a woman should just have that sole choice to kill her child, then what you're saying is she only has the right to choose in certain instances arbitrarily, according to
Sure.
certain standards that you or society or whoever else establish. Not that she has the right to choose, regardless of what society says. You're putting society over her choices, not her choices over society. You see?
Okay. So you think that my examples I gave earlier were just arbitrarily, it doesn't matter, their decision was arbitrary when a woman's put in that situation.
Well, I wouldn't say that they're arbitrary if her life is legitimately in danger or whatever, but I think it would be intellectually dishonest to build your general position on abortion on those particular cases.
Um, I didn't.
Oh, okay. So, what again? It goes back to what you truly believe, and you just told me that you don't think a woman should just be able to just, what you say, willy nilly, just kill her unborn for any reason she chooses.
Or arbitrarily, which is what you said, right?
So you don't think a woman should just, if she, oh, okay, she engages in consensual sex, but has the pregnancy at an inconvenient time. You think you don't think but you still think it should be legal that a woman should be able to go into an abortion clinic, as let's say like 5 weeks of pregnancy and get an abortion, right? You would
I think
not make that illegal, right?
I think there are warranted reasons for why abortion is legal, why certain types of abortion. But I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say I'm not uncomfortable with the situation. However, I mean, I think we've established at least a couple different reasons why women do decide to have an abortion, and they're certainly not arbitrary.
But we talked about things like life-threatening cases. We weren't talking about things like she engaged in consensual sex and had a pregnancy at an inconvenient time and then wanted to take her baby out. We weren't talking about cases like that.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're agreeing with me. It sounds like you're saying arbitrarily deciding to have an abortion, that kind of abortion it's untenable. I think you would say it's immoral. It sounds
I
like
think it
you're
absolutely is untenable. But here's the
exactly.
thing: if it's a woman's right and her choice, then who was anybody to tell her she can't get one at the early stages?
Well,
Because it is legal in all 50 states. it's legal at the earliest stages, okay? And can't nobody say otherwise, whether it's sole convenience or not. In fact, if she wanted to get pregnant on purpose just for fun and get abortions just for fun, nobody could stop her.
Well, it sounds like earlier you said that you didn't care about the legal
No, I
aspects.
don't. No, I don't. I don't base my argument on the legal aspects. I'm just saying that
It,
from a legal standpoint, that is true that a woman can get an abortion for any reason at the earliest stages in pregnancy in all 50 states. But it's not what I base my argument on.
okay, I wasn't saying that's what you're basing your argument on.
And that's what I was referring to when I said I don't care about the legal aspect. I should have clarified that. My apologies. What I was saying is I don't base my argument on legalities, and in that sense, I don't really care about legality.
Okay, but it sounded, my point I was making is that now it sounds like you do, actually, because you were concerned about women having the ability, it's legal for abortions to occur in, say, the state. So it does sound like it should be.
Well, I think,
that-
yeah, I would say that I think, like, for example, I don't base any argument that rape is wrong on legality, but I think it should be illegal, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I look at abortion in that same kind of respect. I don't really base it on legality, but I think it should be illegal because it's taking the life of a human being.
Mm.
It's the same kind of thing for me. Does that make sense?
No, I mean, I understand that you approach the issue not from a specifically legal position, but the point I was making is that you're concerned about the legal ramifications.
Well, I'm concerned about people making it legal to rape people, for example, if that were to happen. In
Yeah.
the same way, I'm concerned. Yes, I would be concerned about it being legal in that particular context. Absolutely, I'm concerned about it. But the basis for why I would think that's wrong is not legal. But if people were to make something like that legal, you better believe I would be concerned about it.
Well, I mean, the point I'm getting at is obviously you would campaign against rape
Yes.
if it were legal. So and it seems to me like you are campaigning against
Oh,
legalized
absolutely.
abortion right now.
Absolutely. I think it should be entirely illegal. I don't think it should be legal to kill your child just because you don't want it there, just because it inconveniences your life.
But you don't think that you need to approach this legal issue by understanding the legal arguments.
That's not a legal argument. Just saying that I don't think it should be legal to rape people doesn't make it a legal argument. Do you understand?
I'm not sure why. What?
Just
No,
because
this is my point. Let me say it clearly.
If I say rape should not be legal, that does not necessarily mean I'm making a legal argument. It's obvious why rape shouldn't be illegal. It's just bad to rape somebody. It's morally wrong, and based on it morally wrong, we should not be going around permitting it in our legal system.
Yeah, but clearly in the case.
I'm not making a legal argument. What I'm saying is it should not be legal because of the horrific moral implications of it.
Well, the issue I brought up
making a legal argument. Go ahead.
The issue I brought up was campaigning against it, right? And so if you are campaigning against abortion, right? So if you are going to campaign against
I'm an activist against abortion. I'm anti-abortion. I'm pro-life. I make I hide that not one bit.
Yeah. I think that being informed on the legal arguments is something maybe you might want to look into. Because I think a lot of people who actually are against abortions, they certainly wouldn't get abortions. They probably wouldn't let their family members get abortions. Still are pro-choice due to legal justifications, right?
Well, let me put it this way. Like, if it's not something that's like not directly involving somebody, like say for example marijuana or drinking or smoking, I don't really think those things should be legal matters, so to speak, because you're not really involving the another person being um involved in the whole thing or being infringed upon. But when you're dealing with things like rape or abortion or torture um, or like I don't know, like harassment and things like that, I think those things you're involving other people. You're immediately affecting other people, directly. So, you know, I think there's a distinction to be made between something like smoking as opposed to something like raping somebody. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I mean, you presumably you have reasons for why you don't campaign, and certainly those aren't legal. The issue is that I mean, I'm just wondering what you know about the legal situations. Because obviously people disagree with you. They they are pro-choice in terms of legality, but they themselves wouldn't go and get an abortion. They wouldn't allow their wife or they wouldn't allow their relatives to get abortion. So it seems like a concern is, well, what is it to have the right to an abortion, like
Again,
purely from a legal issue? And
again,
I mean, yeah, it sounds like you're just not interested in those types of arguments, right?
yeah, but again, it's just like saying that if rape was legal, oh, I'm not pro rape. I'm pro choice, but I don't think rape should be illegal.
Okay.
I'm pro choice, not pro rape. Rape shouldn't be illegal. I'm not personally for rape, but it shouldn't be illegal. You see the problem with that?
Well, I mean, I see it because I just don't see how someone can make some sort of legal argument for rape. But
Exactly. And
I
I say the
can
same thing with
see, but
abortion. It's the
but
same
the
thing
thing
with
is,
abortion, sir.
but well, the thing is I can see how people can make arguments for the legality of abortion. And
Of
so
course, because if you
I'm asking you if you're familiar with those arguments. That's all I'm asking.
well, of course, I'm familiar with them. That's why I'm dealing with them. And of course, you can see it if you have these ridiculous subjective appeals that you use that you would not otherwise use for rape. People have these arbitrary foundations and these circular arguments that they build upon they would not use to justify rape because in their personal opinions there's a difference between the unborn and the born that's no different than the types of arguments that are used to justify oppressive slavery in colonial times, and it's no different than the types of arguments that are used to justify things like murdering the Jews in Hitler's Holocaust, and then all sorts of genocidal genocidal times to where people were dehumanized or looked at as people who are different from everybody else, and they use their own personal opinions and arbitrary justifications to build their cases. And I think people do those same kind of things in the abortion issue.
Um, yeah, I'm asking you which ones in particular you're knowledgeable of, and how do you specifically argue against them?
I'm not okay. Can you give me an example?
I'm just wondering, like Roe v. Wade is like a landmark case. I have to
Right.
go, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, to get you going while I leave, what's your position on Roe v. Wade?
I think it was
But
wrongly decided. And there was
well,
actually
I have to go. I'm sorry I interrupted you earlier. There was like hard issues with the thing, but it was nice talking to you. I'll
that's
listen. Yeah, I'll listen on the outside to what you think
Oh.
about Roe v. Wade.
Well, I actually got it in the hangout. Well,
Oh.
maybe we could talk about it some other time.
Sure. All right. Later.
All right. Well, thanks for coming by, man. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody, and God bless. Have a good one.